I get it, you see a sleek gaming laptop on a forum, the price tag looks like a bargain, you click add to cart, and a week later the screen flickers during a raid, the frame rates dip, and you're stuck watching the same loading screen for longer than the boss fight itself. The cheap alternatives promise the same thrills but end up feeling like a false promise. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So before you toss another $1,500+ notebook into the trash, let's talk about whether the Acer Nitro V15.6-inch actually earns the hype or if it's just another shiny box that will leave you wishing you'd saved a little more. First off, the Nitro V sits in a crowded segment, mid-range gaming laptops that try to squeeze high-refresh displays, a dedicated GPU, and enough RAM to keep modern titles from choking. The biggest question for most buyers is whether the combination of a 165Hz IPS panel and an RTX 5050 can really deliver smooth play without blowing the battery or the budget. In the real world, the answer is nuanced. If you're the kind of gamer who spends evenings on titles like Fortnite, Valorant, or Elden Ring at 1080p, you'll notice the 165Hz panel does what it promises: smooth cursor movements and less perceived blur in fast-paced shooters. I tested the screen with a 30-minute Call of Duty marathon and the motion felt buttery compared to a 60Hz competitor, even when the GPU was pushing the upper limits. But there's a hidden trade-off. The RTX 5050 is a step up from the older GTX 1650 series, yet it's still a budgetish GPU by today's standards. In practice, you'll get solid 1080p performance at medium to high settings in most esports titles, but when you crank up Cyberpunk 2077 or Starfield to Ultra, you'll start seeing dips below 45 frames per second. The laptop compensates by throttling a bit, which means the fans spin louder and the chassis warms up noticeably after 20-30 minutes of sustained load. If you're comfortable with a little fan noise and don't expect to max out every ray-traced effect, that's an acceptable compromise for the price point. If you're a graphics purist who wants ultra settings at 144 frames per second without compromise, you'll probably feel the Nitro V falling short. The CPU, a 13th Gen Intel Core i5-13420H, is a decent workhorse for gaming and everyday tasks. In my day-to-day, it handled web browsing, video streaming, and a couple of Photoshop projects without hiccups. The real test came when I launched Minecraft with a heavy mod pack while running Discord and a music stream in the background. The game stayed stable, and I never saw a single stutter that could be blamed on the processor. For students or creators who need a capable machine for both work and play, the i5-13420H feels like a balanced choice, faster than the older i5-11300H chips you see on many older Nitro models, but still not the high-end i7 or i9 options that would push the price well beyond $1,600. Memory and storage are where the Nitro V starts to show its practical strengths. 16 GB of DDR5 RAM gives you enough headroom for multitasking, and the 512 GB SSD boots Windows in under 10 seconds and loads games quickly. However, the SSD capacity can feel tight after a few modern titles. Assassin's Creed Valhalla alone occupies about 50 GB, and if you add Red Dead Redemption 2, you're quickly eating up half the drive. The good news is the laptop has an extra M.2 slot, so you can slot in a second SSD down the line without opening a new case. For users who plan to keep a modest library or rely on external storage, this is a practical workaround. Now, let's talk about the chassis. The Nitro V's Obsidian black finish looks premium enough for a gaming laptop, and the overall build feels sturdy without the cheap plastic flex you get on some entry-level models. The keyboard has a decent travel and the perky RGB lighting is customizable through Acer's NitroSense software. In real use, the keys stay responsive during long sessions, and the backlight isn't just for show, it actually helps when you're gaming in a dim room. The downside? The laptop is a bit on the heavier side, roughly 5.5 pounds, and the bottom vent can get warm enough that you'll want a lap desk or a cooling pad if you plan to use it on a couch for extended periods. It's not a portable ultrabook you'll carry around campus all day, but it's manageable for a commute between home and a dorm. Battery life is another reality check. With the 165Hz display and RTX 5050 humming, you get about 3 to 4 hours of mixed use before you're hunting for an outlet. That's typical for gaming laptops, but it's worth noting if you were hoping to game on a plane or a coffee shop. When you're on battery, the system automatically drops the refresh rate to 60 Hz, which helps stretch the juice a bit but also diminishes the very feature that makes the screen appealing. So, the Nitro V is